Um, just a couple of words. I'll be just introducing the moderator, Mr. Anisuddin Ahmed Saab. This is, as you know, it's a book launch and cover point. And just like to add here, sort of beat my own drum. I was part of the editorial team which worked on Marker Saab's book, so I'm a witness to how amazing it is. And as we move on, we'll find out in more detail. Now, let me introduce the moderator for this talk. The title of the talk, as you can see, is Cover Point, Impressions of Leadership in Pakistan, which is also the title of the book. So it's a book launch. Now, Anisuddin Ahmed is a senior advisor to Federal Ombudsman Regional Office in Karachi, but he's also the former ambassador to the Republic of Pakistan. He has held various diplomatic assignments in Pakistan missions abroad, and that's that. So I'll hand over to Mr. Anisuddin Ahmed Saab and we'll take it from there.
Thank you very much. I think that saves a lot of time. But let me immediately begin my duty, which is to introduce Ambassador Marker. I have a one-line introduction, which is that Ambassador Marker needs no introduction to any audience anywhere in Pakistan. Having said that, I would have to say a few words, in any case, repetitive though they may be. Ambassador Marker was born on the 24th of November 1922. He schooled at the Doon School and finished his studies at the FC College Lahore, attaining a gold medal in economics. He also used to play cricket for his college. He went straight off, or almost straight off, and joined the war, was a commander of a magnetic minesweeper, and did military service in Burma. He was awarded the Burma Star, the War Services Medal, and the Victoria Medal. So by the time he was 25, he had done all that. And his family then drew him into the business of shipping and pharmaceuticals. I don't think his hands were full doing that. So he indulged in some cricket. And one day, the DG of Radio Pakistan telephoned him and said, I quote, "Join with us in the commentary box with the newcomer, Umar Qureshi." And as Ambassador Marker says, I was hesitant, but he was insistent. So there you are. We had 10 years of commentary after that. And when those 10 years rolled to some kind of early finish, Ambassador Marker was drawn into the diplomatic service, mainly by Mr. Aziz Ahmad, and he went as Ambassador of Pakistan to Ghana. He remained ambassador for over 30 years, continually, without break, to both superpowers, to France, Germany, Japan, to the United Nations in New York and Geneva, and several other places, in all 10 different world capitals, plus 9 concurrent accreditations, and holds the Guinness Book of Record for being the longest serving ambassador in the most capitals of the world. The story continues a bit because the Secretary General asked him to help out in East Timor, where he was grandly, I repeat, grandly praised by all sides, including Indonesia, for the empathy that he showed to the cause and to the people, and for the success of his mission. He then turned his hands to teaching, where he taught at the Eckerd College in Florida, was a diplomat in residence, and taught a wonderfully new crafted course called Diplomacy in International Relations. He has been awarded the SQA and the Hilal-e-Pakistan by the government of Pakistan, and is decorated by the governments of Colombia, Bulgaria, and France. With that shortest of short introductions, because a lot remains, I would hand you Ambassador marker in a fireside conversation with Dr. Ishrat Hussain. Over to you, Dr. Saab.
Thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. It's a great honor to see you, to be with you, and hopefully to take your questions, which I sincerely also hope will be rough, so that we can have a good afternoon. I keep thinking that at the end of 30 years of service, all sorts of thoughts come before you. नज़रों के सामने मुख्तलिफ तस्वीरों गुजरती है. And as they say, old men forget. And I have forgotten quite a lot, but not, unfortunately, the things I really wanted to forget. But what I thought I would try and place before you is the manner in which the Pakistan Foreign Service has conducted itself over the last 30, 40 years. We started literally in a low minus. This was a country which many people thought would never exist, and that if it did exist, it wouldn't last very long. I think I put in this book the proud Delhi Gymkhana, Delhi Club, in 1946, when at that time the burning topic was that will Pakistan ever exist? And if so, how long will it last? Bets were taken on that. It's going to be 3. And I remember this in the beautiful Delhi Gymkhana, green lawn, whiskey tinkling in glasses, people relaxing. And I overheard one group saying, कि बेफिक्र रहो जी, 3 महीने के बाद हमारे पास वापस आएंगे हाथ जोड़ के कि हमें वापस ले लो. And in those days, of course, one could travel easily from one place to another. And the next day, I was on a plane, old sturdy Dakotas, bumped its way across Jaipur and into Karachi. And I left Rig Road and was coming back to my home in Bath Island. And I drove past the cantonment railway station, which was filled with refugees, Panaguzin, who had come in those trains, goods trains, khuni labaz, tired, hungry, but everywhere on these bastis, little bastis, there was a Pakistan flag, and you could hear Pakistan Zindabad. They had nothing, they'd left everything, the whole life. And this was the spirit that motivated them. No complaints about the hardship, although that was evident from the very way they looked. But somehow a determination that we have got Pakistan and we've got to make it work. The next thing that comes to mind is that what happened after. Where did this spirit not disappear, but how did it move away? What changed it? I've had 60 years, 80 years to think about it. And I still don't come to any definite conclusion. The fault, dear Caesar, does it lie in ourselves or in our stars or in what? Because I am quite sure that the Pakistan that we have today was not the Pakistan of the concept of Muhammad Ali Jinnah. Where it is different, how it is different, why it is different, what happened, everything changes. And I can think of those days, again I go back to those days, that you drove past the cantonment railway station and there were goods wagons which had been emptied, the doors had been opened, and they carried these dusty files from New Delhi to Karachi, stacked high, and in 120-degree heat, because we had no offices, no buildings, nothing really allotted that could be a government. We considered a government. And yet these people, whether they were clerks or chaprasis or officers, they were all sitting in these goods wagons with doors open and working on these dusty files. It was unbelievable of the motivation that they had. They had nowhere to go. except their own bastis, for most of them. In New Delhi, there were the elegant, beautiful Lutyens buildings which the Indians moved into as the British moved out. They had everything there. And in Karachi, a hastily constructed, I think that area was then called Harunabad, for reasons that I can't imagine, because it was part of the Harun contribution. I remember going back a bit, that in the evenings in the 1940s, late 40s, 50s, there was a quote-unquote elite group of citizens of Karachi. There were Sheikh Ghulam Hussain Hidayatullah, there was Haji Sir Abdullah Harun, there was Shivratan Mohatra, there were the Dinshaws. They used to meet in the evenings at the Karachi Club because the Sindh Club was not open to Indians, no matter how. And this elite group of people from those days, over cups of tea and coffee, used to plan at that time for Sindh, for the separation of Sindh from Bombay Presidency, which was in one way the first independence movement, if you like, because Sindh was the only province that joined and pushed forward the concept of Pakistan. The first Pakistan Assembly was the Sindh Assembly. And those were heady days. We knew that things were happening. We didn't know what, and we didn't know how it would go. But we knew, those of us who were here, that Pakistan was coming, that it would be difficult, and the more that we realized that at that time, the more I realized that Pakistan will be created. When Muhammad Ali Jinnah died, so soon after the creation of Pakistan, I was in Quetta, and there was a commemorative meeting, naturally, at the residency. And the place was overflowing, not just the residency, but the roads outside everywhere. And people came from all over Balochistan, from as far as Sibi, from as far as... And great big men with huge beards, tears streaming down their faces. And they had been coming, and they used to listen to him, even though they couldn't follow a word that he was saying, because he spoke in English. But the magnetism of that has lived with me ever since. Later on, of course, there was this famous exhortation that you have Pakistan. Now you've got to go ahead and make it. And it's for everybody. All castes, all creeds, all beliefs. That a speech, more important than that, a sentiment, which gradually, in my view, has disappeared. I remember in those days, at the middle of the night, you could get on a bicycle and go from Kimari to Kent Station and to other parts of the city. And when I think back to those days, I recollect कि हम गुलाम थे, लेकिन एक किस्म की आज़ादी भी थी हमारे. You could get out and be among friends and among people with whom you had embarked on an adventure. I recollect that we asked at one of these meetings. There used to be public meetings. In those days, there were no TVs, there were hardly any radios. But there was a kind of a collective support, which you found very heartening. Later on, I had the same sort of feeling when at some foreign airport you boarded a PIA plane. I have to bring this up now. Sorry, but that's the way it is. That when the moment you got into that plane, you felt as though you were at home. It could be the half-cooked curry, but it was more than that. You felt at home, and you felt proud. So I'm waiting now for my boarding card because I feel that personally, at my age, I'm in the departure lounge. And at any time, the flight can be called. But these are some of the, as I say, passing thoughts that come through the head. Has Pakistan succeeded? I think that if you think of where we were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, the jury could be out. But if you think of 1946 and 1947, when a large part of the world's population did not think that Pakistan would succeed, or would even exist, let alone succeed. I think we have gone a long way. I think if you look at the poverty which we inherited and which we struggled against, when we think of how many more of our fellow citizens in the world, and I say this in all truth, wished us more evil than well. And how we overcame that. What brought about Pakistan, and how did we succeed in keeping it? I think I'll now switch speakers a bit, if I may, and ask Dr. Ishrat, whose contribution to the creation of Pakistan. He didn't create it, but he certainly helped strengthen it and continues to do so.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. It's a great honor to be here on the same platform as Ambassador Jamshed Markar. I'm biased, and let me say that because I'm his great admirer. So I think I wanted to say that right at the beginning. He's one of the living legends of Pakistan, and I want to pay tribute at this moment to the three living legends who have just departed us. One was Sahibzada Yaqub Ali Khan, our illustrious foreign minister. One was Mr. Intizar Hussain, one of the finest Urdu writer of this country, and Mr. Aslam Azhar, who founded the Pakistan Television. And we should always recognize those who are living. In India, NDTV has this 25 living legends, starting from Professor Amrita Sen to Amitabh Bachchan to Lata Mangeshkar to Sachin Tendulkar, people who have excelled in their own lives and made contribution to their country. I believe that Mr. Jamshed Markar is one of those 25 living legends of Pakistan, and we should pay tribute to him. I would like to ask a few questions because that's what I've been told. And one of my questions is that, sir, you have devoted 164 pages out of 193 pages to the events up to Moin Qureshi. But you have devoted only less than 30 pages to the period between the Nawaz Sharif government of the first to this government. So there's an inverse relationship between the recent past and the distant past. And your observations this morning, this afternoon, also focused on the early part. Is there a particular reason why you spend more time and space on the earlier part of the history of Pakistan and much less on the recent past?
I think basically it's a question of guilt. I've thought about this, and I feel I should have done more about the recent past. Partly because the recent past, in my view, has been much more disastrous than the previous one. And I honestly feel that I should have devoted more thought and attention to that. And partly because in the recent past I've been not, as I say, out of the loop, didn't have so much to contribute. I had thoughts and ideas, but as far as the actual activity is concerned, my contribution was much less. I think that might be it. Maybe a cop-out, but I think that's one.
Well, may I?
Yeah.
Ambassador Marcus, since you have put it in that way, can I take you back for a moment into the past? Because there is something very, very interesting in your book which relates to that. You worked the longest, the most closely, and also in the most interesting times with President Zia. That is how the chronology worked out. And you also talk about this very interesting nocturnal gatherings of selected critical stakeholders that took place at the COA's house and in Rawalpindi and sorted out so many things. Can you give us a flavor of those gatherings? The role of the principals, their contribution, the sides that they took, the cut and thrust of the argument that took place? And indeed, could you even recount to us some incidents or anecdotes of what happened in that very close circle? I certainly would, and perhaps the audience would like to take a peep into this kind of thing, where Pakistan was being saved and progressed and made and discussed.
It's a question that I'd be delighted to answer. And I'll try and answer it in as much detail as I can. Those evening sessions were never prepared or scheduled or anything like that. They occurred from time to time, mostly when there was a crisis going on, which there was most of the time. But it was, well, first of all, it was in Army House. Now, when I say Army House, I mean it was a mixture of an MES and PWD building. The marble and everything else was left for Aiwan-e-Sadr, designed by, of course, the famous American architect, and for which Zia had total contempt. That what is not this bloody Aiwan-e-Sadr. Let it have. We were talking about. We just bought a plot for the Chancery in Washington, and he said that build something with Islamic appearance. And I thought to myself with horror that one more minaret and dome. But anyhow, he was he lived and died in Army House, which was literally, this was the kind of furniture that was there. There was nothing expensive or elaborate, and he kept all that for Rabban Sadr when heads of state were entertained and that kind of thing. And that found its way into the accommodation itself. And it was during the sessions that we had at the time, let me tell you, there were a lot of things that I disagreed with Zia and said it to him. And I never knew how he took it. After a meeting with him, I never knew what he was thinking. He had that hooded expression, and you felt, as I know many of his rivals did, that they didn't know that they'd been thrown to the ground until they had actually bitten the dust. He did it with such finesse and with such total, I suppose, untruthfulness. He took them for a ride. And he had an ability to do that in the most subtle fashion, so that you could. But to talk about, that was the atmosphere that you found in that. Having said that, he was he never conducted those meetings like a dictator. That he, in fact, you had to sort of, at least I had to probe into it to find out exactly what he was thinking and what he was wanting. Unfortunately, in Pakistan administration that I've found, most people seem to sense what the boss would like to hear, put words in his mouth, and then Zia was not like that. And I think he saw through anyone that was trying to do that to him. He didn't. I mean, he didn't look pleased or flattered. He looked almost nothing. I mean, he had that mysterious look, and one that, as I say, has toppled so many of his opponents without them knowing it. They were. That's one thing. This was also the tactic that he used throughout on the nuclear issue. He had, people said that, it was Bhutto that brought the news. It's true that Bhutto first called all our scientists and said, look, chaps, we've got to get this. There's no other option, and we've got to do it. And it was Zia who took it from there, and also cheated, lied, and did anything he could to get that nuclear weapon. I remember meeting two senior American officials, Armacost and the big hefty guy in the Defense Department, Armitage. They had come on a special mission to Zia after we had signed the Geneva Accord. And Zia was desperate to get as much. How is the time? Sorry, I'm just.
No, just they were showing me the minutes.
So Zia was desperate to get our equipment, arms, frankly, into Afghanistan before the gate came down. No matter that he'd signed an agreement that there was what they called negative symmetry, that neither side would bring lots of bring equipment in and upset the whole. Zia had his own agenda, and was determined to follow it. And he told, they had two sets of meetings, one evening and then the next evening. The first evening was on the nuclear issue. And Amit said to me that we met Zia, and he looked us in the eye and said that he was not building a nuclear weapon, that the nuclear program was entirely peaceful. And we knew he was lying to us. The next day, he discussed with them this negative symmetry. And they said to him that, he said, you know, I want you to send me as much equipment, I need it desperately. By then, Ojri camp had just happened, and everything had blown up, and there was all that trouble. And so he said, I need to replace all of that. So they said, but Mr. President, you've just signed an agreement. And so Zia said, leave that to me. And then he said, you know, in Islam, it is permissible to lie for a greater cause. So after that meeting, one of these said to the other that on both occasions, the bastard lied to us in the greater cause of Islam.
Mr. Ambassador, let me ask you a provocative question.
Yes.
You described Ayub period as a Helicon period in which there was a super cadre of trained, competent, and dedicated civil servants who were inferent with the entrepreneurs, with the military in the background, which created tranquility and unparalleled economic development. You also paid tributes to Ziaul Haq's administration, and they said it was efficient, determined, and as you know, the kingpins of that administration was Ghulam Ishaq Khan, Sahibzada Yaqub, Wasim Jafri, Roidat Khan. And today it is the military which seems to be running most of these affairs while the civil servants are in the background. So there are two hypotheses, and I would like to seek your opinion. The first hypothesis is, which is the military is usurping the rights of the civil servants and politicians and the parliamentarians and running the country. The second hypothesis is that if you compare the 60s and 70s civil service, it has become very weak. And when there is a vacuum, a stronger institution which has maintained merit and efficiency will step in order to help the country. I would like to seek your opinion as to which of these two hypotheses you think describe the existing situation in Pakistan.
I think that the second hypothesis is correct, but I wish it had not been.
That's true, but
and here I think the reason is that the military have, over a period of time, grabbed the privileges and used the threat, use force or the threat of force to maintain that. There is no reason why this should not have happened in India, and yet it has happened to us 4 times, 5 times. We have the same background in terms of administration, in terms of the competence. We are as good as they. Anyway, you can see them when you see them working together or competing with each other. It's certainly in diplomacy, the Pakistanis are as good, if not better, than the Indians. But we have somehow allowed let me say, put it frankly, that allowed the Indian mentality, political mentality, to take it, to use this system, and much to our discredit.
Ambassador Marker, we are running out of time. I wonder whether we'll be able to take many questions, but with your permission, sir, we could do a short and quick Q&A. I will, if you permit, pose 2 short questions while the audience may like to think out their questions. I'd like to take you beyond quiet diplomacy and cover point with 2 questions. Whether Pakistan, my 5-year plan to fix it beginning now.
Sorry?
My plan to fix it beginning now.
Yeah. Cup of tea?
So,
No, I'm not mean to be facetious. It's a very, it's a question that's been burning the minds of everybody and in Pakistan today. And when I try and answer it, I want to tell you that it always is helpful to me when I look at the past and not just with trepidation at the future. I keep thinking of what we were and where we will come. The difficulties which we have overcome, many of them self-created. And there are certain absurdities about Pakistan which cannot be explained. When Pakistan was created, people said that, how can this work? It's not real. And then we compounded that by creating the first instance in history where the majority of a country secedes from the minority. And we accept that. I mean, we say, okay, that's... But nowhere else in history, I mean, I'm not a historian, but I don't think you'll find many instances in which the majority has seceded from the minority. Possibly Czechoslovakia, which was so artificially cobbled together that something like this was bound to happen. And this need not have happened. This is the painful part of it. It need not have happened. It did not happen in India, time and again. Although for 60 years I've been hearing that India will break up, that India won't. But there is that flexibility which comes under the name of tolerance, if you like. So we need, I think that's the first thing. The second is that we must learn to look at our mistakes and deal with them, and not look for excuses or blames for others. We have our standard list of villains, 3 of them if you like: RAW, CIA, and Mossad. And anything that bad happens to us, it's not our fault. It's 1 or 2 or 3 of these together. For God's sake, we are supposed to be the masters of our own destiny. And how can you expect to do that and run your destiny if you're so ready and so willing and so able to hand it over to others, that we've been damaged by them. There must be something that we need to look. And we lost half the country, more than half the country. And, you know, it's as though this is something that happened between Algeria and Morocco. It's nothing to do with us. So we must learn to profit by our mistakes, or learn by our mistakes. That is, I think, the first and most important.
Okay, sir.
Can we take a question?
One small and important question. You have had extensive experience of dealing with the Americans. What is your honest opinion about them? How dependable are they as friends? And the second part is that how much do they control our destiny?
Very good question. Very, very good question.
Well, to answer the second part first, when you go to the cashier's desk and collect the money, then you know how much they control and how much they don't control. This is I don't believe that they can control anything of our destiny, that we do not accede to them.
Bravo.
And what was
Your honest opinion about them.
how
What
dependable they are?
How dependable is
are they dependable? Are they even
friends
friends?
and allies?
Are they even friends of ours?
I cannot think of a single state in the country whom I would call as my friend. It's a matter of negotiations, it's a matter of give and take. It's how much you expect from them, how much they expect from you, and what you're prepared to concede. Most important is how much of your independence are you prepared to concede to any friend or foe.
Last question. I think
Assalamu alaikum.
we've got 2 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Chaudhry Zulfikar from Multan.
Zara ऊंचा बोलें.
I am industrialist from Multan. My question is, sir, how we made a good friend of neighboring country like European countries? Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't follow
I
that.
didn't-
How can we what? फिर
What?
से बात कई उर्दू में बता दें.
Yes. My question is, Pakistan is become a good friendship with the neighboring countries like European countries.
अच्छा,
Thank you.
नेबरिंग कंट्रीज के साथ कैसे दोस्ती हो जैसे यूरोपियन कंट्रीज में है?
हाँ, चलिए शायद यही मतलब.
वो तो आप बन जाइए यूरोपियन कंट्रीज.
कुछ
Yeah.
जी.
Sir, I want to request you to share the moments or events. I want to request you to share the events and moments and inside stories of those evening meetings at Army House,
वो तो
which
हो
were
चुका है.
happening in the early part of 1979, leading to 4th or 5th April night, execution of the ex-Prime Minister.
No, he wasn't there at that time.
He wasn't
wasn't
there.
there.
No,
Okay.
no, he wasn't there.
Okay.
He was talking about when Ziaul Haq had taken over,
Yeah.
and then these meetings were being held, and he was
But,
not there
he-
at the time of the PNA movement or the takeover.
No. My point is, do he has some knowledge about?
No, he doesn't
Okay.
talk about
भाई
this in the
ये
book.
तो छोड़ें.
किताब में नहीं है ये.
कोई और आखिरी सवाल भाई प्लीज. because then we have to leave this room.
Sir, you mentioned that you had disagreed many a times with General Ziaul Haq on certain issues. So in retrospect, would you be kind enough to tell us that what one decision you vehemently, opposed, which has actually, you think, that decision, if it had not been taken, Pakistan would have not been in such a situation? Thank you.
Quite a few. If I would start with what I thought was the worst, it was the lashing. It was totally barbarous. It's not in our culture. The people of Pakistan didn't deserve it. And I told this, I said it to President Zia, that this is not, let alone not in our culture, it's not in our temperament. We're not, we don't, and it will not give us any results. What was his answer? A distant stare. No glaring, no nothing. He just looked into space and didn't say a word. And when I left Army House that night, I thought that I may not come back here. But he never had that. He never held that against him.
Let me quote from his book what he says about Ziaul Haq, which summarizes what he just said. There was a disgusting increase in the hypocritical public display of piety, which had by now become a major component of the insidious cult of the obsequiousness that has always plagued our societies. That is what he said in his book about Ziaul Haq.
Thank you, Ambassador Barker. Thank you for all your thoughts. We have spent a wonderful 1 hour with you. We wish it would have been longer.
Yeah.
And, I, for one, have the benefit of enjoying your company. But I would like to thank you from my side and from the audience here,
Big
and to
applause
thank
for
them for being here.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being such a wonderful audience. Marker Saab's book is on the right side of the hall, towards the end, so you can purchase the book from Marker Saab will be personally signing those versions that you can collect from here. So thank you very much.